Hello boys and girls, we are looking at simplifying fractions today, which is lesson 4-4 out of your textbook. And our learning target for today says I can use a common factor to write equivalent fractions in simplest form. Alright, I want you to take a second here and think about what these words might mean. Equivalent fractions and simplest form. We've got our little think icon right here. So think about what those words might mean. We have some new vocabulary words, so make sure that we jot those down in our notebook. Okay, so let's look at this equivalent fractions. Well, when we see this word equivalent, we think equal. Okay, so equivalent fractions means fractions that are equal to one another. Okay, or fractions that have the same value. Okay, fractions that are equal. So if we think of the fraction 1/2, okay, there are a lot of equivalent fractions to this, which are fractions that have the same value or they're worth the same. So think of 4/8. Well, 1/2 of 8 is 4, so those two fractions are equivalent. Okay? Now, simplest form, okay, simplest meaning can't be reduced anymore, okay, and this is when they have a greatest common factor of both the numerator and the denominator, so the top number and the bottom number, are both 1. Okay, so what this means is if we have a fraction, the greatest common factor, so the biggest number that goes into both the numerator and the denominator, are 1. So let's think of an example here, 5/10. If we look at these two numbers, we know that the greatest common factor, or they share a common factor of 5, which means 5 fits into both of these. So then we could reduce it to simplest form. And we know 5 goes into 5 one time, 5 goes into 10 two times. So 5/10 in simplest form is 1/2. Okay, so now we are looking at simplifying 6/24, and there's two methods for this that we can do. One of them is dividing by common factors, or numbers that go into both the numerator and the denominator, the top number and the bottom number. So 6/24, I know that they can both 2 goes into both of them, so I divide both my numerator and my denominator by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 24 divided by 2 is 12. Now I look, is there a number that can go into both 3 and 12? Well, I know they can both be divided by 3, so I do that. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So 6/24 in simplest form is 1/4. Now the second method is to divide by the greatest common factor. So we look at 6 and 24 and we find the factors for them. The numbers that go into 6 are 1 and 6, 2 and 3, and I think that's all of them. For 24 we have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6, and I think that's all of them. So now we look at them, find our greatest common factor, which is 6, and now we can divide our numerator and our denominator by the greatest common factor, which we found was 6, so we divide by 6 here and here. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 24 divided by 6 is 4. So again, we get 1/4 for our fraction in simplest form. So whichever way you do it, you should get the same answer. All right, now this one, here we go, 36/45. We're trying to write this in simplest form. I am going to divide by the greatest common factor, because if I look at 36 and 45, I might not necessarily know numbers that go into both right away. So let's find that out. Let's list out the factors for 36. 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, and I think that those are all of our factors. Now we list them out for 45, which are 1 and 45, 3 and 15, 5 and 9, and I think that's all for that. So now we look and see what's our greatest common factor. Looks like our greatest common factor is 9. So we take our fraction 36/45 and we divide both the numerator and the denominator by 9. 36 divided by 6 is 4. 45 divided by 9 is 5. So that is our fraction in simplest form, reduced to simplest form. There's a few here for you to try on your own and then come back and check. All right, 7/28. I'm going to go ahead and list the factors. Well, for 7, we know it's 1 and 7. 28, we've got 1, 28, 2, and 14. 3 is 4 and 7. And I know our greatest common factor there is 7. So we divide both the top and the bottom by 7. 27 divided by 7 equals 1. 28 divided by 7 equals 4. So that reduced is 1/4. All right, this next one here, I'm going to go ahead and divide by numbers that I know both go into here. So I know both of these can be divided by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 20 divided by 4 is 10. Now I look at this and I know again they're both even, so I can divide them again by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And our last one, 27/36. For this one I look at it and I don't necessarily know right off the top of my head what goes into it, so I'm going to list my factors for this one. 1 and 27. Next would be 3 and 9. I think those are our factors for that. For 36, we've got 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9. So we look, our greatest common factor is 9, so we divide both top and bottom by 9. So that means our greatest common factor for that one is 3/4. Or sorry, our fraction in simplest form is 3/4. All right, we have a word problem here for us to look at. It says, Lauren measured a grasshopper for her science project. Each line on her ruler represents 1/16 of an inch. Find the length of the grasshopper in simplest form. So if we zoom in on our picture here and we count the lines on our ruler here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay? And each one of those lines represents a 16th. So we know that the grasshopper is 14/16. And I know looking at this, they want it in simplest form. This is not in simplest form, but 4 goes into both. Nope, not 4. Sorry, 2 goes into both of these. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So that means the grasshopper is 7/8 of an inch. All right, go ahead, take your NICU for 4-4, simplifying fractions. Don't forget, you can always go and rewatch this video if you need for better understanding. You can also look at the examples in the book, and you can watch the personal tutor videos and the resources of the online textbook. Have your notes in class for tomorrow.